That's a good question. First, uh, coming out as hard as going in. Uh, for me, I had the advantage that most people today don't have and didn't have, and that is that I had an opportunity to work through the system, and participated in the work release and the family leave programs. So my transition was a lot more smoother, even though when they changed the policy, I had to spend 13 more years incarcerated. But when I was eventually released, that process, it was a smooth process. But as far as hard going in, uh, it was certainly difficult going in. In fact, I think for the first maybe 5 to 7 years of my incarceration, I was sort of like in a state of suspended animation because it was difficult for me to accept the fact uh, that I was still incarcerated for something that I didn't do. Uh, so going in was a hell of a lot more difficult than it was coming out. That's for damn sure. Well, as far as my sense of dignity, I was raised by good parents. That was first, so I already had a good, strong moral foundation. Uh, and as far as, because I'm often asked the questions, like, well, how did you do that? Well, you people that are incarcerated, there will be two groups. Uh, my group would be in the minority. Uh, the majority of the people that are incarcerated committed some type of crime to be there. Uh, and so they're going to do time one way. The people that falls within my category is going to do time a different way. And our resolve is going to be a hell of a lot more stronger. I always knew that I was coming out of prison. I knew that that was my ultimate destiny. I didn't know when and I didn't know how, but I knew I was coming up out of there. And so, because I was innocent and I knew that I was innocent, right? I just knew that that wasn't going to be my ultimate stop. I was coming up out of there. So that's how I dealt with it, right? And that set of people that's doing time for something that they did, to them, the process becomes like a means to an end. Uh, One of the reasons why I struggled and fought so hard to change the parole policy is because while I was in there, even though I was there for something that I didn't do, I met a lot of people that had effectively changed their lives, and I knew that they deserved another chance to be released. And so once I was ultimately released, I decided that I wasn't going to stop there. Well, the reason why we have a criminal justice system in the first place, right, is to try to correct an earned behavior. And if an individual has committed a crime and they've been punished and have served that time, uh, there would be no reason or should be no reason why you should just to continue to keep them incarcerated ad infinitum, just to continue that punishment. If that behavior has been corrected, then they should be given a second chance. They should be given a third and fourth chance, for that matter, because who knows when a person changes? Who's really to judge the judge, so to say? As much as we like to think that we right when we think we have all the information, but the reality is that's still somewhat subjective. So I think everybody should be, well, that's subjective too. I think that everybody should be given a second chance. But that's the way the system is designed. If you commit a crime, if you do some bad behavior, it's like one of our children. They do something, we punish them. Once they've been sufficiently punished, then we go on with their life. We don't keep going back to what they done then. We keep going into what they or how they are now. A good candidate for parole would be someone who's come into the system, uh, has participated uh, in most of the programming that is available to them, right? And that they've changed their lives. They're no longer the person that they were when that crime was committed. Certainly uh, they would have to demonstrate remorse for what they've done, and have a good home plan, a good support system once they're released. That's going to be very, very important, right? And have dealt with whatever trauma that may have been responsible for leading them there in the first place. Oh, absolutely. It's an extremely important part of the process before an individual uh, should even be considered for release, for that matter, because once they've been incarcerated, they've naturally lost contact with a lot of the things that they had prior to being incarcerated. And so having those things lined up and in place, so to say, would offer the type of support that they would need once they are eventually released.
Why doesn't the system help people build re-entry plans like that then?
Well, at one point, I think it was designed to do that, but it has gotten so far away from that, specifically because of the mass incarceration that has occurred, excuse me, that has occurred over the years. And we went way away from what was considered a rehabilitative process or an habilitative process. I tend to shy away from rehabilitated because that takes back to former. And I think habilitation, which just means to qualify an individual to do certain things, the system has gotten way away from that. And we have moved more and more toward incapacitation and warehousing as opposed to, again, habilitating individuals to be able to qualify uh, once they are eventually released. Well, the parole system, as well as the Division of Correction, has evolved over a period of time. Uh, and I think that, as well as culturally, society tends to look a little more different at people who committed crimes that they did at one point. At one point, an individual committed a crime, and specifically going to the previous question that you asked, that they are obviously not the same person that they was when they committed the crime. Then they was looked at as a changed person. Now that process seems to be more skewed toward the victims that the crime was committed against, and more weight is given to what the individual done as opposed to the change that the individual has made. Uh, I don't really know what that is or really why that is. I just know that during my period of incarceration, over time, I saw that behavior changing as far as an individual when they were making appeal for parole. It's going to be challenging. That's a given. And I'll use my personal experience uh, as an example. Initially, when I was having parole hearings, the parole commission was just automatically denying, or really not even considering, because one of the criteria that they seek is remorse. And since I wasn't demonstrating it, and I couldn't for that matter, I was being denied. So it's not going to be easy. In fact, most individuals that are wrongfully convicted or that are innocent, it's really a challenge to overcome that. And it's just something that you have to endure. It took me almost 40 years. Hopefully, no one incarcerated now would have to endure that, but it is a process. It's not something that, because the parole commissioners or the parole board is not there to consider or to look at an individual whether they're guilty or innocent. They're just there to decide whether they should be released on parole. And so it's going to be challenging. But again, from my personal perspective, it's just something that you have to endure. Naturally, I was disappointed over time, but the fact is, I don't even know whether I even thought that I would even be released on parole, because I always felt that I would eventually prove my innocence, and in the end, I actually did. But it's not going to be easy. That's a fact.